The Raptors are looking to improve on the 48 wins that they had last season, but unlike many of their competitors in the Eastern Conference, they really haven't made any significant moves in this offseason. But in today's video, I'm going to break down why Masai Ujiri and the Raptors front office have a huge plan coming and why a superstar could be on the way to Toronto through a trade very soon. Let's get into it. What's going on, NBA and Raptors fans? It's Jacob here, back with Amateur Sports for another Toronto Raptors YouTube video. On this channel, I bring you the greatest coverage and analysis on the latest Toronto Raptors news. So if you like what you see from today's video, then make sure you are subscribed to the channel. You can help me on the road to 12,000 subscribers. And if you find yourself enjoying this video along the way, be sure to drop a like to give the extra bit of support. Let's try to get to 300 likes on today's video, just like the previous few. But our video today is about the Raptors potentially making a trade for a superstar, but that trade is obviously not going to happen right now. And as far as this offseason, it seems like everything is kind of closed off, and we're going to go a little bit more into that a bit later on in the video. But that doesn't mean that there isn't any sort of plan in place to get the Raptors the player they need to be that true contender in the NBA. I mean, many other teams in the Eastern Conference have made some big moves in the offseason. You have the Atlanta Hawks trading away 3 first-round picks to get DeJounte Murray to give Trae Young a little bit of help out there. You also have the Cleveland Cavaliers really not losing any significant piece and adding in Donovan Mitchell to your team. Those are key teams getting better, key teams that were in and around where the Raptors are going to be in the Eastern Conference getting better. And the Raptors, as far as their movement in the offseason, no trades to report on, and their only real notable pickup, no less a great pickup, the only notable pickup to their team is Otto Porter Jr. And this is a team that won 48 games last season and also was the 5th seed last season, not really making any moves. And don't mistake the way I'm kind of describing this as criticism for the Raptors. This is something that I think was the right decision, but obviously, if this team wants to be that true contender in the Eastern Conference, which obviously Masai Ujiri, a very ambitious sort of guy, that team wants to be there. This team wants to be there, but we're going to have a little bit of extra patience here. And this video was really sparked by a video I saw from The Score where they were talking about the Raptors possibly trading for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in the future. And Raptors fans have been flirting with this idea for a number of years now, mainly because, well, obviously SGA is an exceptional player. And I think if he was playing on a team that actually had ambitions to win basketball games and not scout guys who are still in middle school, he would be considered a superstar in the NBA. I think he'd be a multi-time All-Star, even at this point in his very, very young career. And we obviously go back to SGA a lot because he's a local guy. He's from Burlington or Hamilton, one of those two, which is very close to Toronto if you do not know this. But I'm not really as concerned or focused in this video about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Specifically, is that a player I'd like for the Raptors to pick up? 100% absolutely. I mean, what can you not like about the guy? He is a outstanding scorer on multiple levels, a good rebounder, good size for position, playmaking. Like, there's so much to like about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in particular. But the video is not just about him. The video today that I'm talking about is how the Raptors can pivot and position themselves to get that superstar and make that big trade to push them over the top and to be contenders. That video kind of just sparked the idea about SGA in particular and the Raptors landing a superstar in particular. And I was looking on Twitter as to the comments surrounding this video, and a lot of the comments were like, man, the Raptors fans are still pushing this sort of SGA agenda. But the reason the Raptors fans can push this sort of agenda as it comes to a superstar is that we have the pieces available to make this trade happen. And that was proven this season when we are one of the key figures in the possibility of making a Kevin Durant trade. Now, ultimately, nothing ended up happening there. I think the Brooklyn Nets kind of handled it pretty well. Like, they got Kyrie Irving back. They got Kevin Durant back. You know, as much as that's a lot of dysfunction there, that team on paper is good enough to win an NBA championship. We'll see, you know, how invested all these players are into actually playing for the Brooklyn Nets, playing for that organization, playing for that coach and that GM, Sean Marks and Steve Nash. But nonetheless, like, that is a very good team on paper that we can kind of see what happens with them. Other teams in the East kind of realized how competitive this conference is. Gone are the days of, you know, a team that's under 500 making the playoffs in the East, because I think even the 8 seed this season is going to have a well above 500 record. Like, you've got a lot of bona fide sort of playoff teams here. Like, obviously, you've got your Milwaukee Bucks, you've got Boston, you've got Miami, you've got Philly, Brooklyn should be one of those teams. Cleveland now should be one of those teams. You'd expect the Raptors to be one of those teams. I wouldn't say as much, the Hawks are going to be one of those teams, but 100% absolutely they could be. They've got Trae Young, DeJounte Murray on their team, and you've also got other teams like the Chicago Bulls sort of flirting with a playoff position here. This is going to be a hugely, hugely competitive Eastern Conference. Other teams make themselves better to compete better in that Eastern Conference. The Raptors don't do this sort of thing. And there is a reason for the Raptors doing it. There's a reason we're not really making any big moves. The Raptors have interest in making a trade for a superstar. Proof of that, surprisingly, comes from the second-round pick, the 33rd overall pick, Christian Koloko. We took so long to sign Christian Koloko to his rookie contract. We spent so long thinking about it. We spent so long sort of discussing why has Koloko not signed his contract yet. And I made a full video about this, but the Raptors, when they signed Koloko, they wanted to sign him to a 3-year deal rather than a 2-year deal. You can sign him for the 2-year minimum, and that doesn't affect you towards the cap. But when you sign a player to more money on more years, which the Raptors did, they gave Koloko $1.5 million this season, the minimum in year 2 and 3. Giving him that 3-year contract hard caps you, making it very difficult to execute any sort of trade. We left that open for a good amount of time because players like Donovan Mitchell were available. Players specifically like Kevin Durant were available. So there is interest from the Raptors front office and from Masai Ujiri in order to make this trade happen, but we have time on our side. This is a young core. Siakam, best player on this team, not even 30 years old yet. He's going to be there very soon, but he's not there yet. Possibly the second best player on this team, just won Rookie of the Year. Fred VanVleet also has a case to be the second best player. He was an all-star this season. He is also, not quite yet, he is also not 30 years old. You've also got OG Anunoby in his mid-20s. You've got Gary Trent Jr. in his low 20s. This is a very young core. You can go to the bench, Precious Achiuwa, low 20s as well. We have time to see how this core develops. We have time to see how everything is going to transpire with these people. And while we're letting all this happen, we have our draft assets in order to find players to put around these pieces. Maybe Koloko is one who can kind of develop into that. But we've also got all of our draft capital available. Not many teams have that. We have all of our draft capital available to pivot and make the right trade, but there is no reason to rush that sort of trade because this team is still going to get better and better. You have other teams like the Atlanta Hawks, for example, who kind of hit the ceiling that their core could hit, the natural ceiling of their current core. They knew they had to make a trade. Now, if I'm trading 3 first-round picks, I want a player who's going to put me over the top. DeJounte Murray doesn't do that. I still don't even think they're like a top 7 team in the Eastern Conference on paper. So, I mean, interesting move, but hey, that's a team that saw that they hit their natural ceiling and wanted to make the big move. You could also use the 2019 Raptors as an example. The 2018-2019 Raptors that ended up winning the NBA championship. They really let that core play out as much as it could, and they realized they hit the natural ceiling with that core of Kyle Lowry, DeMar DeRozan, and something needed to change. They had all the assets available to pivot and make the big trade and get to the next level, and that is exactly what they did. They maintained enough assets to be able to make that superstar trade in order to acquire Kawhi Leonard, who was the catalyst in the Raptors, of course, winning that 2019 championship. Right now, the Raptors, as I mentioned, have all of this draft capital available. They are doing their best to maintain all of this draft capital. And also, they have a lot of those mid-level sort of contracts in and around $20 million that are pretty easy to trade. Those aren't horrible contracts that teams don't want to take on. So if you do need to find a situation where you're giving away all these picks and you're giving away salary filler in order to make a trade happen, you have the contracts to be able to do it, and you have the draft picks to be able to do it. And this is strategic. This doesn't just happen. This is very strategic from the Raptors front office to be able to do this because they understand this is a very good core, but the current crop of players, very much likely together growing over time, will not be enough to win a championship. That is why you pivot to make the trade. In order to pivot to make that trade at the right moment, you need to maintain as many assets as possible. Asset retention is so important in the NBA, and the Raptors seem to be a team that does a great job of doing that, despite the fact that they cannot attract very significant free agents. In fact, any sort of significant free agents at all. Like, the biggest free agents, it seems like, the Raptors have ever gotten, beyond like guys like DeRozan, who are free agents who just re-signed with the Raptors. The biggest free agents we've ever gotten are like DeMar Carroll and honestly, like, Otto Porter Jr. might be one of the biggest free agent pickups in Raptors history. That's not even hyperbolic. Like, go look up Raptors free agents that we have picked up here. We do it because the way we draft, the way we develop, and the way we maintain our assets. We structure our team to be able to pivot when necessary. LeBron James, before the 2018-19 season, leaves the Cleveland Cavaliers, opens up the Eastern Conference. We have the assets in place to strike and pivot at the right time to put our team over the top by acquiring Kawhi Leonard. We're going to stay patient here. It's a loaded Eastern Conference, as I mentioned. Obviously, development and winning games is going to be the priority for this team, but we're not going to win games sacrificing development. We want to do both of these things in conjunction, because when the time is right, and we'll know when the time is right, this team has the ability to go out and get that coveted superstar sort of piece, because the assets are here. We're purposely trying to keep on to as many as possible. I know we traded the first last season to help us get that 5th seed with Thaddeus Young. It is what it is. We have the rest of our draft capital available, a lot of mid-level contracts that you can trade, but you really want to build this team around Scottie Barnes and some other key pieces. The Raptors are in the perfect position to do that. The trade isn't going to happen right now. We're hard capped as a result of giving Coloco that 3-year contract, as I mentioned earlier on in this video. But when the time is right, we can make that trade, and we will make that trade, because Masai Ujiri is a winner. He wants to be a winner, and he wants to be a winner in Toronto again. I believe he is going to do the right things in order to make it happen. At the end of the day, it is so incredibly difficult to win an NBA championship no matter what the circumstances are. But he is going to put this team in position to be successful as long as the players like Scottie Barnes continue to develop in the fashion that they are doing so. Super excited for this season. Understand maybe there's some people who are a little bit frustrated with the lack of action from the front office, but best believe I'm looking at this team right now, and there is a plan in place. Right now, it requires patience, but the future is extremely bright. I can't wait to see where it goes for this team. So what do you make of the video? Do you think I'm onto something with this big master plan Masai Ujiri is building, or are you super frustrated the Raptors didn't bring in any sort of key pieces with trades this offseason? Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below, because that is it for me for today. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please, if you did enjoy, be sure to drop a like on the video. It goes a long way to supporting the channel, because when you like the video, it lets YouTube know to recommend this video to more people who have similar interests to you. It only takes a second for you to like the video, but it does help me out a ton. And make sure you are subscribed to the channel. You could help me on the road to 12,000 subscribers, and in return, I'm going to be giving you the greatest coverage and analysis on the latest Toronto Raptors news at least 3 times a week. The season is just around the corner. Keep it locked with Amateur Sports for all of your Raptors content needs, and I'll see you again next time for another video.